I didn't even look at the equipment thing stuff.
It's a bunch of trucks.
Didn't even glance at it.
Oh,
All right, well, we're a minute early, so that'll be a fine with me. Welcome, everybody. Regular city council meeting, October 26th, 7 p.m. All are present and accounted for, and we will begin with the prayer or thought by Cheryl Bowers, followed by the pledge.
Our dear, kind, and gracious Heavenly Father, we are so very grateful for the opportunity to be here this evening and for the beautiful weather and the water and the moisture that we've received in this beautiful time of year in San Juan County and in Blanding. Please be with us tonight as we have discussions and we make decisions and we hear information that we can do things that are pleasing unto Thee and that are good for this city and will help us to progress and to move forward in positive ways. We're so grateful for all those that are here with us and for the time and effort that they put in to be here, and for the council members and for the mayor and for their time and energy and efforts to help improve this city. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Anybody, have we had occasion to glance at the minutes? Are there any corrections? I think there's nothing being changed on the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda and minutes from the October 12th meeting.
That's Perkins and Turk, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? To everybody. I don't see anything on here that lends itself towards a specific declaration of conflict. Speak up if there is. Is there anybody in attendance today that would like to address council on any matter that's not on the agenda or you want to bring up? We have two prospective council members out there. That's good. I like to see people coming, be up to speed. Reports, I will report that we hopefully by the end of this week, a little ahead of the anticipated schedule, we'll have our bridge back in place across Cottonwood. And by the end of 2023, they anticipate putting a wider bridge there. And that's part of their planning process. That money's already been allocated to do that. It's just a matter of getting the schedule for it. And just a point of interest, when I mentioned that Cheryl Bowers did a prayer or thought, about 13 years ago, legal counsel came down through the state, through the League of Cities and Towns to all the cities, and they said, quit praying in your council meetings. It's going to cause you some trouble down the road. And it was my suggestion to say, let's not call it a prayer, let's call it a prayer or thought. And then I believe that the Second Amendment gives us the right to do whatever we want with that. That's why we left it. Just
Second Amendment.
yeah.
That's right, for arms.
First Amendment.
Well, yeah, but you know.
We like that one too, so we'll use that one.
Use the Second Amendment as a backup.
To stand corrected, First Amendment, which without the Second Amendment probably really doesn't matter anymore. That's my personal opinion. Okay, any reports from City Council? Seeing none, move right along. City Manager status report.
Yeah, you see there's a few updates in here. One of the things that I wanted to tell you regarding the Swallow's Nest, which isn't in the report because I learned this morning, but Pratt was able to get some estimates on doing some decorative rock to both do the median where the clock is. I guess where everybody refers to that as Triangle Park. And then the Swallow's Nest area, probably around $2,500 just for the gravel. which is a pretty good price to do that. And so timing may be variable based on how the weather and everything goes. So it may wait till spring, but we'll see what we can do in the meantime when there is good weather. Another point of interest. So later on in the business meeting, we're having you do just the resolution for the $40,000 for the grant that we received from the state. And Terry has been talking to the state, and they found out as part of what we've been doing with the deep well that we're also planning on updating our water master plan. And they actually told us that they could approve an additional $40,000 potentially to pay for our water master plan, so that doesn't have to come out of our budget at all. And that's without going through any kind of appropriations or anything. That's just at their discretion. They can approve up to $40,000, and they felt that meets right along with the other goals that we're doing. So that's a
It's a
positive
grant?
thing. Yes, it's a grant in practice, but not in name. They call it a principal forgiveness agreement. Essentially, it just means you do it, we'll reimburse you.
Oh, so we pay and submit an invoice. essentially.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. It's pretty straightforward and clean cut, so that we don't have to go through all the federal reporting that's typically required with a grant where these funds come from. So
Interesting.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So those are just a couple of the highlights I wanted to bring out to you, other than oh yes, Pratt let me know today too. He gave me the contract, and hopefully we'll be moving forward with the welcome signs here in town. And so, and he's looking at doing a new welcome sign above City Hall here, and then the billboards, he's following up with those. So
So
hopefully sooner than later.
what's the movement on the visitor center RFP for the gift shop?
So on Monday, the RFP for the Parks and Trails Master Plan goes out. And then as soon as that goes out, Pratt's next one that he's working on
Okay.
is that specifically. So we just talked about that this morning.
It
so.
just kept kind of biting us in the face
Yes.
each time it was due. And so, and it seems like it was around this time that suddenly we just were doing it again. So,
Yep, and I think his goal is to get the RFP together and hopefully out, I think,
Okay.
probably by the end of
Thank you.
November. So,
And then with the shade in the pavilion, I went to the league conference, and there was all kinds of vendors, and one of them was for this, and I've done this before where we've kind of gone back and forth. I have a lady that says that she thinks that she could beat the bids, and that includes installation. So if I get that, I'll send it to Dave and we'll go from there. But
yeah, we
we'll see.
keep
We've
trying
done
to
this
find,
before, but
we keep trying to find more cost-effective avenues, and what keeps happening is we'll go one route like us installing it ourselves, but find out that the concrete work is going to be more costly and time intensive than what our staff is capable of doing, things like that. So, or maybe capable is not the right word, has the time to do with everything else. So, but we're trying to make progress in each of these things. And we'll keep you
Okay.
informed as we go.
Since you mentioned the Triangle Park, did you, what is the plan for that?
So essentially it's to put in the gravel there.
Zero
and
escape?
essentially to zero escape. And, you know, we've got, it's hard to tell with the new landscaping out front here, but there's kind of those wispy grasses that are there. We'll probably put in plants like that, and that will
You gonna
happen.
get the clock to run?
Yes, we're gonna get the clock to run. So there's a
12
few.
o'clock for a long time. I can buy the clock.
It's always lunchtime and blending, apparently. So,
Did, I have one concern about that, and that's the tree that was removed. I know there was some issues about it within residents of the city too. I just think, in my opinion, when we remove a tree, it should be for a very, very good purpose with no other options, especially a tree that's that old. So that's just a comment from me personally and as a city council member. But did you by chance mention any of this to the Rotary Club?
yeah,
They knew. Okay.
Councilmember Turk met with them before we
She
did
said they
anything.
would maintain it once the city gets it.
Okay,
back.
okay. All right.
Yeah, so,
Sounds good.
okay, great, thank you. That's all I've got. Unless there's anything else on this project status.
Okay. Financials, Kim is not here, but maybe if you've got any questions, they can answer them or forward those questions on.
Yeah, if there are questions, I can see if I can answer them. If not, we can get back to you when Kim's in the office Thursday.
what would be the like the fines and forfeitures, there's an increase there. And there's a note that says that we're collecting more than anticipated. What are we collecting more of? Like what would be an increase there?
I'd have to ask you,
Okay.
she would know.
Okay, and that's fine, it's not,
Increase, but-
I mean, because it's pretty big increase.
Mhm.
I assume that would be tickets and fines from the court, through the court.
That's my assumption as
It
well.
is quite
I just wonder if there was some, like one big thing, or if it was just several of
All
those little
several
things adding up.
things.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be sure to ask about that.
Okay.
Anything
Point out
else?
the positive sales tax and room tax. That's great.
Yeah, actually,
That's
we're looking, I can't remember the specific numbers off the top of my head, but there's like an 18% increase and 17. We're just seeing regular increases.
How that compared to 2019 too?
Oh,
Is that?
Oh, I don't know about 2019.
We were up,
Just
were
over
we up
2020.
last year? I mean, we thought we'd be down, but we were still up a little
We were
bit.
not-
It was closer up, yeah.
Well,
surprisingly.
my understanding is
So,
that,
yeah,
we cut the budget, this is prior to my time, 15% across the board essentially.
Right.
But we actually received increases in
Right.
some of those taxes. So it's been a positive thing. So I think we budgeted wisely during COVID and we're seeing the benefits of doing so.
Good.
Anything else on finance? Okay, so get healthy presentation. I don't see anybody out there that I don't know.
We have
So are we
some
going
friends
online?
here
we go.
on Zoom.
Okay, good.
Morgan, can you hear us okay? Let me see.
Yeah, I can
somebody.
hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Go for it. The floor is all yours.
Awesome. Great. Well, hello, everybody. So thanks for giving us a chance to join in on your meeting tonight and giving us some time out of your busy agenda. So just to introduce myself, my name is Morgan Haddon, and I'm the program coordinator at Get Healthy Utah. And I'm also here with Alicia.
Hi, yes, I'm Alicia Ducbar. I'm the executive director at Get Healthy Utah, and I'm new to Get Healthy Utah. So Morgan is our expert that's going to talk about our great program today.
Yeah, so pretty excited. So just as a little bit of background, we are the organization that in partnership with the Utah League of Cities and Towns helps to facilitate the Healthy Utah Community Designation Program. So I have a slideshow prepared for that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I won't be able to see any of you, so if you could just give me a verbal affirmation if you can see it when I've got it up. So just... Oh, it looks like host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Let's see if we can allow you advanced screen sharing options. There you go. You should be able to now. Give it a try.
Okay, great. Can all of you see this presentation now?
You see that? Great, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to try to take just a quick 10 minutes just to tell you a little bit more about what this designation is, how a community can qualify, and hopefully answer any questions that you might have about it. So just like I mentioned earlier, this community designation was created, well, it's actually pretty new. It was created in 2020 when Get Healthy Utah and the Utah League of Cities and Towns partnered together to find out what we could do to recognize, acknowledge, and essentially award communities that were doing a really great job at prioritizing the health of their communities and doing what they could to improve the health of residents. So with that, it's, the first designation was awarded in the fall of 2020. And so in about the year and a half since we've been working on this, and we're pretty excited to say that 22 communities across Utah have received the designation. So you can see here on the map that we've had a really, wide geographic spread, which is great. But something that I want to point out is that not only have we had a big geographic spread, but we've had a really big spread in communities receiving this designation, just meaning all sorts of different types. So you can see here at the top of the list, Annabella is a really small rural community that has less than 1,000 residents in it. And we also have some of these bigger, older cities like City of South Salt Lake, City of St. George apply and receive it. And then also we have newer communities too. So for instance, Vineyard City is one of the newest cities in Utah, and they were able to apply and get this. So kind of the whole point of this designation is we want it to feel very open to absolutely everybody. We purposely made the criteria flexible enough that any community, no matter the size, no matter the age, no matter the location, can still do the work to qualify. And so just to point out, I think sometimes as a society, we get a little bit hyper focused on the idea that health is purely a personal decision, right? That all that matters in health is self-discipline, and that's the end of it, right? But one of the things that we know, and one of the things that research has shown, is that the environment where we live, work, and play also has a really big impact on health. And this is where communities, so cities, can come in and make a difference. Now, of course, cities and city leaders are not able and should not, make personal decisions for people when it comes to their health. But what they can do to make a difference is ensure that opportunities to be healthy are available. So for instance, if we think about active living, what are some opportunities that a city can provide to promote active living, to promote exercise, right? Well, there can be connected walking and biking trails. You can make sure that there's biking lanes, that those biking lanes feel safe for community members if they want to commute to and from work, so on. Or with healthy food, are there enough grocery stores? Are there farmers markets, community gardens? And then mental health, what kind of resources are available in the community to someone going through a mental health crisis? And so the Healthy Utah Community Designation is given to communities that do a really great job of making sure that opportunities to be healthy are available. And not only available just to individuals, but are equally available throughout the community, meaning that everyone, kind of regardless of their age, their gender, where they live in the community, what their race or ethnicity is, that they all have equal opportunities to be healthy. So that's called health equity, kind of an important term that we use here. And so the Healthy Utah Community Designation is given to communities that do a great job of promoting health and health equity. And so that's great. That's the background here. But how does a community qualify, right? So let's go ahead and take a deep dive. So first of all, what you'll do is you'll end up sending in an application for your community. And there's 3 basic requirements. So first of all, a community has to have a health coalition, meaning that there needs to be a group of people who are meeting together regularly to talk about the health in the community and strategies to improve it. Now, this coalition is going to look a little bit different for every community, every city and town, just depending on your circumstance. So for instance, Annabella, that really tiny town that I mentioned, kind of in a rural area, they were so small that their health coalition was actually their city council. However, if you go over to some of these bigger communities like Sandy City, they actually have a very large coalition called Healthy Sandy, and they have their own website. Another example is Kanab down in southern Utah. They are part of the Kane County Health Coalition, which is a coalition that meets together monthly to talk about health in their county, and that applied for them as well. That counted as their health coalition. So if you have any questions about what might count for this coalition, go ahead and shoot us an email, ask questions. We're super happy to work with you, just to answer any questions there might be. But the second basic requirement is you need the mayor's approval. So the mayor needs to sign off on the application. And then the last thing, and really kind of the meat of the application, is that you need to be implementing 6 health strategies across 4 different categories. So let's talk about that a little bit more. So on the application, there's going to be 4 different categories: collaboration, access to healthy food, active living, and mental health. Now, I said earlier that you need 6 strategies, 7 including the coalition, but that's kind of separate. So 6 strategies across these 4 things. So that means you need to have 1 strategy under each category. So collaboration, healthy food, active living, mental health. And then that leaves 2 other strategies that can come from any of these categories that you want. So they're kind of the wild cards. Now, one thing I want to point out is that 6 is the minimum. If you are implementing more than just the bare minimum 6, that's excellent. We want you to indicate that on your application. You kind of get brownie points for that kind of deal, right? And so let's go ahead and look at what this checklist looks like what kind of strategies am I referring to, right? So under collaboration, this is the checklist of possible strategies that we give you. So just for an example, do you have a relationship with your local health department? Are you partnering with them on programs? Do you have a resource page on your website to assist in accessing healthy food, physical activity, mental health resources, and blending? So on. And then do you have health related objectives in our general plan? And hopefully you get the idea. I won't go through and read all of them. But with the next one, the next category, access to healthy food, here's a few examples of strategies here. Do you have a farmer's market that accepts SNAP benefits? Do you provide financial incentives for a grocery store to locate in an underserved area? So are you addressing food deserts that may exist in your community? Do you have a community garden? And so on. Active living is kind of the fun one. A lot of communities really enjoy this one. Some examples include, do you have connected walking and biking trails, right? Do you have different hiking possibilities in your area? Some different examples are, do you offer free or low-cost community sports programs for kids, for adults? Do you have an active transportation plan, and so on? And then the last category, mental health. Does your community offer question, persuade, and refer trainings for suicide prevention? Do you offer any evidence-based programs or resources to help someone going through a mental health crisis? Do you promote the use of the Safe UT app in schools or community centers, and so on? And so that's, like I said, that's pretty much the meat of the application. A lot of times what ends up taking a community a while to apply is, let's say they're like, oh, darn it, we're hitting 5 of these strategies, we need to get the 6th, right? And sometimes it can take a little bit of time to implement a strategy. But once all of that is ready, once you're applying, the last step is just to answer a few essay questions. And these aren't very wordy. As you can see, it's only 250 words or less, 200 even for some of them. But the questions are, explain how your community addresses health equity by ensuring that all members of the community have the opportunity to be healthy. Next question is, does your general plan address healthy eating, physical activity, and mental health? If so, how? Then what is the biggest success your Healthy Community Coalition has had in the past year? And last of all, how will your Healthy Community Coalition grow in the next year? And so that's really it, honestly. So I'm sure as I was going through some of those things, hopefully you were able to think about what planning is already due. And I kind of hoped that in your head, you were able to say, oh yeah, we do have sports programs. We do have connected walking and biking trails and so on. So there's a good chance that you might already be halfway here, right? So I don't expect you, of course, to remember all of that criteria off of the top of your head. So I'm just going to walk you really quickly through our website and what you can do to prepare on your own for this designation, if it's something that you'd like. So what I recommend doing is going to our website, which is gethealthyutah.org. When you go there, you're going to see a landing page like this, and there will be a nifty little...
I prematurely stopped the screen sharing, so you have to share again.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for letting me know. Give me 1 second here. Okay, is that working again?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, so as I was saying, just go to gethealthyutah.org. It's going to take you to a landing page that looks like this. And what you'll want to do is click on that nifty tab up at the top that says Healthy Utah Community. That's going to jump you to a page that looks like this. And where I really want to zoom in on and draw your attention to is that Healthy Utah Community blue rectangle there in the middle. Because this is the resources that are really going to help you out. So you can see that top red square, it says, or rectangle, it says click here to complete the application. That's what you'll do when all of your ducks are in a row and you're ready to apply. So really what I want to point out is down here below it in the white words, it says download the application checklist. If you go ahead and click on that, what it's going to do is pull up a PDF form of this application. If we were in person talking to you, I would have printed this off and given it to all of you.
We put it in their packet for you.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, if you could, that would be great. So yeah, so what you can do is you can just go over this checklist. It's going to have all of those strategies written down for you. It's going to talk about those essay questions, getting mayor approval, everything that you need to know is right here. And since it's a PDF, like you said, you can print it, you can attach it to emails, whatever you want to do there. And then I also wanted to show you a few other resources that are here on the website. So if you do go back to that landing page, you can kind of see down on the bottom, there's some beginning of some squares down there. So if you scroll down, what you're going to see is some squares that look like this. Now, each one of those squares represent a different aspect of the application. So for instance, that bottom middle one with the balloon is for mental health. So let's say you go ahead, click on that one. And one of the strategies for mental health was promoting the Safe UT app in schools. If you don't necessarily know what that is, there's going to be some website links there that you can go to that will teach you everything that you need to know to implement that strategy. And then back on that landing page, if you scroll down further than the resource squares, you're going to see a button that says click here to learn more about what other communities have done to earn the designation. So if you hit that learn more button, it'll pull up a list of everyone who's been designated and what they did to earn the designation. So that can give you some pretty good ideas. And then if you've done all of that, then you come back here, you click that red button to complete the application. And this is what it'll pull up. The application process is actually really quite simple. It can probably take you as little as 30 minutes to fill out if all of your ducks are in a row. So you just type in things, you can see the little button, may you approve submitting the application, and then scrolling down, there's going to be a place for you to answer the essay questions, upload meeting minutes from your coalition meetings, and so on. And so that's really it. So just to let you know, if you do decide that you want Landing to receive this designation, if you decide to apply, this is what you can expect. So Healthy Utah communities are designated biannually at the Utah League of Cities and Towns conferences. So there's 2 Utah League of Cities and Towns conferences a year. There's one in the spring, one in the fall. So with that, we actually have 2 application deadlines a year. We have the one in spring, which is March 1st, to be recognized at the April conference. And then the second application deadline of the year is in August 1st, to be recognized at the September conference. So if you apply, if your application is approved, you'll receive an award here. You'll get a really nice plaque, like you can see on the right-hand side. I just did an example of Harriman City. And you'll also be featured in the awards video and on our website. And once you receive the designation, you get bragging rights. So we provide a promotional toolkit to help you spread the word through social media, press releases, and so on. And we just encourage you to maintain whatever progress you've made so far and just encourage you to keep doing more. So I wanted to point out that this is a 3-year designation. So let's say your community was recognized in spring of 2022, you would need to reapply in spring of 2025 to keep the designation. And we'll provide more information on the reapplication process to communities when that time comes. But essentially, we just want to make sure that after receiving the award, your community continued to prioritize health and didn't just stagnate. And so with that, if you have any questions, you are very, very welcome to contact us. There's Alicia's email that you can see. There's my email. So it's just our first names at gethealthyutah.org. And with that, I don't know if we have time for questions, but we're certainly happy to take any.
Well, I guess the only question I would have is it's great for the council, the community to kind of promote the ideas and encourage people to have a healthy lifestyle. But is there a purpose outside of that of the designation? There's a little bragging rights, but does it mean anything essentially?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. So first of all, like there's not any monetary award or anything attached to this. But what we're hoping that it can do is provide a framework for communities. So for instance, we were talking to the health department over at Kearns. They just barely received the designation, right? And so they hit some of the criteria, right? You can see that there's a long checklist there, and they hit a few of them. It gave them some ideas of things that they could do to improve their community, like, oh, maybe let's do a community garden. And then after receiving the designation, they're like, hey, these were some really good ideas. We're actually continuing to use some of these strategies as we plan the future development of Kearns, right? So it's supposed to, so kind of what you get out of it is of course bragging rights. It's kind of nice to show your constituents, hey, this is what we've done in our leadership positions, but also it can generate some ideas and maybe some new development in your community as well. So
yeah, I think I'll just kind of add to what you're saying. I think Councilmember Monson and myself, some of the interest is it helps bring greater focus in the community on healthy well-being of the community. These types of programs make you look holistically at maybe where there's gaps in the mental health and physical health and well-being of your community. That's kind of in my mind as
Well, there's grants, just not through
this
health,
program.
not through this, but doing some of these things make you eligible for other grants.
So like recreational
Yeah,
grants and
yeah.
other types of things.
Yeah.
So
Well, so I mean, I was reading through the checklist and I either put a question mark like, yeah, I think we might have that one, or a check mark like, yeah, we do that. I had 10 of them that were very real possibilities that we already have 10, but at least 5 of those are pretty solid. Just from what I can think of, and I'm not a very creative thinker, so somebody else would look at that and go, yeah, we meet that qualification with this thing, that I hadn't thought of. So,
and that's kind of what initiated Councilmember Monson and I talking about this. Was at the league conference. We looked at each other and said, we're already doing
We're
a lot
already
of these
there.
things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And we want to keep supporting our cities and towns. This is a fairly new designation program through Get Healthy Utah and in partnership with the league. But down the road, we want to make it more robust, want to provide more resources to our cities, want to see how we can keep helping our communities be more healthy. So look forward to more things down the road. I think we'll create newsletters and tools and things to really support our cities and towns so that you can make sure that you have great quality of life for all your residents.
hey, any other questions?
No, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for yours. Appreciate it.
Okay, now moving ahead, I remember Councilmember Bowers was encouraging people to get involved in the redistricting and make comments and whatever. I appreciated that. And I was kind of thinking, as far as the county side of it, that maybe we ought to do something. But Councilmember Monson really brought this up and said, should we really issue a statement from the city, an opinion on the districting as it's being talked about as far as our commission districts. And so just he asked me to kind of do the lead in on this, and then you can run with whatever. But when the districts were formed, I don't remember which of y'all were here when that was happening, but we spent some pretty good money for a high priced lawyer, and we filed an amicus brief with the court in that case. And I asked for a copy of it from Kendall, which I saw it in the email, but I haven't gone back to read it. But as I recall, some of the points that we made in there was one, we are a community of interest. Obviously, we're a community. We meet every possible legal qualification legally to be a community of interest, which by law is supposed to be protected. And we were divided, and we were not divided because of math, because Blanding would have to be divided if we constituted more than 33 1/3% of the county population, which we do not. So mathematically, it's not required. We were divided politically. And then in doing that division, they tried to present to the public that they preserved our community of interest to the greatest extent possible by only dividing us in 2 pieces, which is a lie, because we're divided into 3 pieces. And the way they make that claim is that the incorporated area of the city is divided in 2, that the community is divided in 3. And when we argued that in court, the lawyers from the other side said that it was really hard to identify exactly where did Blanding begin or end, where is the community. Yet on the map, every tiny cluster of houses anywhere north, south, east, or west that had some area designation had little boxes drawn around them, declaring them to be communities of interest, which could not be divided by the special counsel. But they couldn't find Blanding on the map. They just couldn't figure out where that was. I was so wishing I actually was watching the proceedings when that discussion was being had. And I was really wishing I was on the stand so I could say 6, 7, 8 phone numbers, 84511 zip code.
Yeah.
Anyone who, when you say, where are you from? They say Blanding, whether they're in the incorporated area or not. Look at Google Earth and say, oh, the houses end here. There it is, just like they did every other community in the county, was easily identified, but they couldn't find Blanding. The largest community in the county, they couldn't find it on the map. Where is it? We don't really know. So we just had to stick with the incorporated area. It's BS. And if the Trib wants to quote me on that, they can spell it out if they want. But those are the points that I would want to make again. They most likely would be fruitless. But sometimes when a bully's going to punch you in the nose, you need to at least make sure everybody knows that they're doing that. And I would review that amicus brief more and see if there were other finesse points in there. And so, you know, based on Logan's recommendation, I would suggest that we write a letter, and if we come up with the bullet points that we want to be made, and we'll make them more diplomatically than my little tirade tonight.
The truth's already spelling it out.
Let them spell it. But in our letter, we'll be diplomatic, we'll be proper. It might be a sternly worded letter, but it'll be one that's written professionally. But I don't, if there are any other points, you know, if everybody is kind of agreement that we would want to write something stating our position, establishing that.
What kind of brought, I mean, obviously, I think we should do this anyways, but I watched the county commission meeting when they were talking about this, and they had their hired person that's supposed to be redrawing the districts and things for the voting districts or whatever. And the two comments that kind of caught my attention, I guess, but the first ones were that this is going to be a really easy thing to do. We'll just divide Blanding some more. We'll just pull some people from Blanding and move them around. Really easy to do. It's not going to be a big deal. So that was the first one, that just it's just not a big deal. We're not a big deal. And then the second one was at the end of the meeting when the guy asked, so you don't want me to split up any of the chapter house areas, right? And they're like, yes, don't do anything to the chapter house areas. It sounds like Blanding is the way to go. Like,
Right.
so those are my things. It's like, that's us. Like, that's what they're doing, is they're just continuing to split it more. So.
If I can make a recommendation, maybe what we could do is here between myself and whoever else wants to be involved, but get input from the council, and I can work with our city attorney to maybe draft something or see if he has a recommendation on how that approach should be. And then when we have a draft, we can bring it to the council to discuss if there's any modifications from that, if the council today decides that that's the direction that you want to go.
So it's a discussion item here to say, do we want to move forward with a joint statement? And if we do, then I would welcome anybody to read the brief or talk to people and propose bullet points that should be addressed in that letter. I would be more than happy to work with Dave to write that letter with Kendall providing some oversight so that it really has some teeth. You know, and then we can bring something back for discussion and
And
or
if they
approval.
can't define the Blanding community, maybe as part of that letter, we
We'll
can help
define
give
it.
some recommendations of definition. If not anything, there's incorporated, but there's also our annexation boundaries, which are
Mhm.
pretty well defined at a minimum. So there's some things I think that maybe we can
Right.
discuss and look at.
And so,
I think there's no question. We need to do that.
okay,
We
we'll
need to-
move forward
we need to
with
do one
that.
For the state redistricting as well.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was gonna kind of bring that
Oh,
up
yeah, I
too.
saw
with
some of the
Rob
maps for
Bishop.
We
Jump ship
would like
yesterday.
to go, after discussions with Monticello and
Oh, my goodness.
Representative Lyman, we'd like to go west is his recommendation and mine as well.
Right.
So
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I have consent from the general one.
Yeah, we'll move.
Yeah, I mean, I was
Sorry,
gonna
just
say in
one point
addition
on
to that,
on the county redistricting, would it be stronger in resolution format?
I would say that when we bring the draft to you, if probably what we'll do is we'll put together a draft, bring it to you as discussion item, and then if you want to move forward with it as a business, or we could just bring it
So
as a
this goes
business item.
next year. So I say we try and have this approved by our next meeting, like approve it at our next meeting.
Okay, well, we have 3, maybe 4 meetings before then.
So they're meeting with this guy at their next meeting. So that'll be before, I mean, that'll be next week,
Okay.
but
We need someone there to read. Resolutions just, it's a vote of the council, and I think they hold a little more weight, although it's the same thing.
they did say that they would take public comment on this is one thing that, so they did not move to just completely go forward with this. Commissioner Gray Eyes kind of pulled back a little bit and did say that it was in their best interest to get public comment on this. So they did hold off a little bit. So maybe they won't make a decision at the next one, but just have time for public comment at some point.
Might I recommend a couple things then? We could do the letter, and even if we want to, if you can trust the mayor and the city attorney and I to put it together before it comes back to the council and send it so something is said. And we can send it out to you and you can give just me feedback rather than,
Right.
so we
That's
don't
worked
create
well in
a
the
public
past.
discussion. We can send it out, and then after the fact, after it's sent, you can also approve it by resolution. In addition to that, if you want to inform the community about public comment, we could put that out on Facebook and on the website, or
Yeah.
we can find some mediums to say this discussion's being had. Make your voice heard regarding Blanding City. Regardless, I'm sure there's few opinions in the city. I gather that most of them, consensus with what the council's saying here, but either way, making our residents and the broader community aware of this discussion so that voice can be heard. So.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. A letter has, even if it's signed by everybody, it has a certain weight, but a resolution has a little more kind of a legal gravitas.
Mhm.
But a letter is so much easier to express what you want. The language of a resolution is difficult. I've written them, but sometimes a letter serves a purpose better. So what I'm thinking is if we can get a letter drafted, and then we could pass a resolution that says, whereas these things which are going to be addressed in the letter, and then our action, because normally a resolution is to take an action.
Mhm.
And so the action would then be to approve the letter,
The
to endorse the
evidence.
letter.
Yeah, right.
And so we can get the wording in a more comfortable, easier to express manner. We get the resolution that cites those same bullet points and authorizes the publishing of the letter. Does that make sense?
You're saying retroactively, so even if we
If
draft
we
the
get,
letter
yeah,
and send it
if you were
out.
able
Because
to
it
get
needs to go out before they
consensus
vote.
back, yeah, if you got consensus back on something we draft,
We'll have to see what's on the
then
agenda.
we knew we were gonna run with it, then the resolution would support that.
Yeah, I can draft the letter and then you can send to me feedback. So it's individual feedback, not a collective feedback. We can make adjustments.
That brief will give us a really good framework and maybe some finer points that I've forgotten because I'm getting old.
Because the brief was a little weak in the split 3 ways area. Even the brief was a little weak, I
Was
felt.
it?
So, but the things that you said are perfect, and I think you just add that in there.
I think we can-
But I do think a state redistricting letter would go a long way to the redistricting council.
As far as.
As far as moving
Yeah,
west
'cause
rather
I've seen
than
some
north.
maps that.
So we don't want to be with Moab and Harbin. We would rather stay with our current.
Well, and
counties.
with that,
Oh.
so yesterday Rob Bishop withdrew from the redistricting committee because he said it does not represent rural Utah at all.
Oh,
There's
he was our
6, there's
voice.
6 on there. And he said it does us no good and this group looks stupid, essentially is what he said.
A couple
So
things,
that's interesting for us.
a couple things that
No, it
might
makes
help.
its own statement.
Yeah, it
Is
does,
it
but
can we work together to find out was that a recorded meeting, the minutes,
Yeah.
where they said, don't divide the chapter
Yeah.
houses, but divide.
Yeah.
Help me find some of the minutes
Yeah,
since you
I can
attended
pull
the
it up.
meeting, so we can identify that in the letter, the contradiction, and even we could even point out I'm thinking collectively, we may pare it down more, but we can maybe even point out bishop pulling out because of the lack of representation.
Well, but that's a whole
That's the
different,
state.
that's the state.
State
Oh, that's the
redistricting
state
versus
one you're
county.
talking about, sorry.
Which is
You would-
still
you would
something we
go
should be
both.
involved in, I think. I mean, I think that we're,
That's right, I keep crossing the state
Yeah.
redistricting and the county redistricting.
So two different letters,
Sign-
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, all right.
And I would just note that everything that we, and Kendall should probably be aware as also, is that everything we do needs to be a framework for the possibility that we may end up filing a lawsuit. I don't know. And I would hope that wouldn't happen, but at some point we have to defend our city in having representation in the county. And so this also leaves us the framework to do that in the future if we need to. So when Kendall reviews it, I think he probably does anyway, but he needs to review it in that regard.
Yeah.
Would you do you want to pursue a letter for the state
The
I
side?
think
yeah,
so. I
I-
think,
yeah.
yeah,
Do
okay.
you want to work with me on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're talking a letter for
So you
each
can,
Yes.
scenario.
yeah, if you two want to work together to bring us something to consider on the state redistricting, I'll work with Dave and Kendall to get the county letter. And we'll request feedback on what we come up with. And if we see support for the letter, we'll get it to them. And then we'll come back with the resolution formally adopting that position.
Well, and I can work with
Okay,
both of you on the same.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. it's all fun and games.
Okay, well, I think we've
Okay.
got consent and.
Surplus list. We're not gonna go over every item, are we?
We're
We're
not.
just being informed
Well,
as to
one
what
thing I
they
wanted to
are.
say with the surplus list, which, as after I'd already put it all together, I started looking at more of our language about the surplus. And technically, the council only needs to approve items that are worth $500 or more on the surplus list. And anything else, I administratively can have sold. I wish I would have realized that before I put this all together, but I still think it's good in a public meeting for you guys to see what we're surplusing out there. So really, I think the vehicles are the actual things that need approved, but since we've already included everything else on the surplus list, obviously you can approve.
Yeah, I
the
hadn't
rest.
even looked at the thing, or I would have kind of wondered why.
Yeah,
Because I knew there was a
exactly.
500 limit. so-
The reason why is I was thinking originally collectively, because
Oh, I
what we
see.
wanted to do was sell all the fitness equipment, and I thought, oh, that's worth a lot. But then I realized as we were breaking it out, oh, we could have individually sold these without going to surplus list, but
Okay.
I was asked about this and how it works with city staff. Can city staff do this as well? Is there anybody that cannot put a bid in?
no, everybody's eligible to purchase. That's perfectly fine. I mean, I'm eyeing some of the fitness equipment myself, but I want to make sure it goes through a proper process, right? So I think that's perfectly fine. And that's part of the purpose of going through a proper process, so nobody can come and say, oh, staff just is giving stuff away to staff, so.
Well, yeah, that's even a better idea. Why it just, at least even just for FYI, that all the smaller stuff.
Right, there's no behind the table staff getting city property kind of stuff going on, right?
So I'll make a motion that we approve the surplus list.
I'll second it.
It's, Perkins and Monson, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're good. So the resolution on the drinking water grant, which you addressed earlier. So are there any questions that Dave didn't kind of cover there? We asked the state a lot of questions because we were reading this thing and going, whoa, what the heck?
What's with the language? Yeah.
But the guy that's making it happen is the guy that makes sure that we've complied with all the rules. So
He's in
says
charge of
we do.
administering
He
it.
says, I am complying you with the rules and it's my job to do that. That's the short answer.
That's a good way to put it. yeah.
There were some real concerns. It looked like I didn't know what we were getting into. And after an exhaustive letters back and forth with him, that I'm comfortable with it. Terry, you're feeling comfortable with what we had there. Kim had a lot of questions, which I think she's posed all those questions and had answered, I believe. So, okay.
No drawbacks as far as you saw. Or
Well, at a glance, I said it can't be this hard. It's a post-performance reimbursement. We just need to do the work and we need to know.
And the reason why there was so much language involved in it is if it's more than $40,000, there are a few more steps, not too much different.
We have the boilerplate language.
Right, but Yeah, exactly. You have the boilerplate language, and that's what was causing us to have little flags go up like,
It
well,
says,
why
yeah,
is all
the
this
city will do
language in
this, the
here?
city will do this, and he says, yeah, you do that by having me do that.
Right, yeah.
It's all done. You've met your obligation, basically, so.
And a part of all the language is also a way to say, if you do all these things, then you don't have to go through these onerous things through typical federal grants have to go to, so
Anyway,
just covering.
in the end, I quit having heartburn and I felt comfortable with it.
Just need an approval of the resolution.
Uh-huh.
Which is.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 10-26-2021-1, the Division of Drinking Water Principal Forgiveness Agreement.
I'll second it.
It's Bowers and Turk, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have us a resolution and we can move forward on that project.
We do have a need.
No, we have no, unless you want there to be, I can come up with a couple on
No.
there.
Okay,
I'll
so.
make the motion that we adjourn.
I'll second it.
I think Logan got there, but you said the whole thing, so we're going with Kelvin.
Logan got this.
So it's
I just
Perkins and Nielsen, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.